What's up, guys? Welcome back to BB Fantasy Football. Today we'll be going over our Week 2 preview, looking at every game, players we like, lines we like, stuff we hate.
Week 2, let's get it. Week 1 was definitely one for the ages, I'll say. A good Week 1, on to the next. Who we got this week?
Going into our first game for Sunday, we have the Saints traveling into Dallas to face off the Cowboys. Dallas are 6.5-point favorites with the over-under set at 45.5. I also like the underdog in this game. I think the Saints will cover that 6.5-point spread. Coming off a really impressive performance where the defense and offense both showed out. Dallas did look really impressive against that top 5 Browns defense, but I think they're going to regress a little bit this week, coming off an opponent they haven't seen in a while with a new and improved Saints team.
I actually went the opposite side of this. I think I'm pretty comfortable taking the Cowboys at -6.5. I feel like we've seen what Cowboys do with bad teams. We've seen what they do with good teams. They shatter against good teams, and they absolutely dominate the bad teams. I think the Saints' performance last week was a bit of a fluke because they played Carolina, so I feel comfortable taking that spread at 6.5.
Be on the lookout for CeeDee Lamb to have a good game this week, along with Alvin Kamara. Taysom Hill, like the Saints said, is going to be stepping into that Deebo Samuel type role in that offense. I think he has a potential to score a touchdown, just like he does almost every week. I do think this is going to be a little bit of a higher scoring game, so I'm taking the over at 45.5.
And keep a lookout for Chris Olave at some discounted lines potentially from last week's performance. If they are available, I'd say go grab them right now. Probably a good price.
Going to the next game at the 1 o'clock slate, one of my favorite ones of the weekend, we have the Buccaneers going to Detroit to face off against the Lions. Detroit are 7-point favorites, and the over-under is set at 51.5. Same thing here. I'm taking Tampa Bay to cover that 7-point spread. Detroit didn't do enough to impress me against the Rams on Sunday, and Tampa Bay looked stellar. I think Tampa Bay will go into Detroit and get redemption for the 2 losses that they handed to them last season.
I agree. I think the Buccaneers will cover that 7-point underdog spread, and I think that the Buccaneers will really control the game here with the fact that the Lions are going to be pushing the run game, and the Bucs have a defense that's going to push right back. It's going to be a close one, going to be a close finish. Bucs come out on top, in my opinion, but I am taking that spread for them. Some players that we might want to watch out for in this game specifically, Amon-Ra St. Brown looking for a big bounce back game. Another guy who might have some discounted lines, and I really like Rashad White's receiving yards as well.
First look at this game, I think it's going to go over that 51.5 line. They both have great offenses, pretty good defenses, but I think the offenses are going to overpower in this. There's a lot of playmakers and a lot of room for these players to show off their talents and get into the end zone.
A nice flyer pick I have for this week is Sam LaPorta to score 2 touchdowns. The Buccaneers defense does look great in the run game, which is going to force Jared Goff to make quick passes. They're going to get to him quickly, and I think Sam LaPorta is that guy.
Next game we have is the Colts traveling to Green Bay to take on the Packers. We have the line set at Indianapolis -3 and the over-under set at 40.5. I am absolutely hammering the Colts at -3 if Jordan Love does not play. Malik Willis looked absolutely horrendous coming in lieu of Jordan Love at the end of that game. Was not impressive when he played in Tennessee. I don't think that's going to change. The Colts have a great defense, and the only thing that's going to be stopping them is their run defense.
A few things I'd be comfortable looking at is definitely Josh Jacobs over rushing yards. We saw what Joe Mixon did last week to the exact same Colts defense, and because Malik Willis is going to be back there, they're going to be relying on their running game a lot, so I like Josh Jacobs rushing yards.
I personally am going to be taking the under 40.5 in this game. I think the Colts get out to an early lead and then start to slow down. I don't really think the Packers have a chance unless Jordan Love plays in this game. Our next game on the slate is the Jets playing the Titans in Nashville. The Jets line is -3.5 over the Titans, and the over-under is also set at 40.5. The Jets are coming off a disappointing performance against a top 3 team in the league. They had shown signs of greatness on the couple drives that they had scored on. With the weaker defense, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to exploit them and make some bigger plays. With that being said, I'm taking the Jets at -3.5, and I'm also taking the over. I think the Jets are going to put up some points, and the Titans are going to be playing from behind, which in turn will lead them to put up about 17 to 20 points.
Yeah, I'd be comfortable taking the Jets in that spread. I think they come out with a big game, and I think the guys who we're going to want to watch out for is obviously Breece Hall. I think Garrett Wilson is going to get involved heavily, and I like Mike Williams to be kind of a sleeper pick. Didn't play a ton of meaningful snaps, but I think they're going to start to ramp him up a little bit more, and that one big play could take us over.
Moving on to Niners-Vikings, this game is going to be in Minneapolis. San Francisco spread is -6, and the over is set at 45.5. I'm a little biased. I'm taking San Francisco at -6. They looked absolutely amazing against the Jets on Monday night. I think the Vikings looked very well against the Giants. But then again, they're also playing the Giants. With Sam Darnold under center, they do have an advantage, as he did play in that San Francisco scheme last year, so he knows how to tear apart that defense. But I still think the Niners get away with this win, and I think they win by at least 10.
I agree here. I think that the Niners are going to force Aaron Jones to try to run the ball a lot, and when that doesn't work, they're going to have to throw a lot. Justin Jefferson, and I think that's Niners' bread and butter, getting the defense to get some stops. I think I'd be comfortable taking them as favorites in this matchup.
Yeah.
Some people that we might want to watch out for, obviously Jordan Mason. I think the over on his rushing yards will be great. I think the game script kind of pans out the same way it did with the Jets, where they're going to be up big at the beginning, and I think they're just going to pound the game out.
With that being said, I also like the over 45.5. I do think this is going to be more of a higher scoring game. Although the Niners defense did look good against the Jets, they did allow a garbage time touchdown, and the over 42 in that game ended up being a wash. I think the same thing happens this week. They allow a garbage time touchdown. The Vikings do put up some points against this defense, and then we see over 45 points today. Our next game we have is Seahawks versus Patriots at Gillette Stadium. We have the Seahawks to cover a 3.5 point spread, and the over is set at 37.5. I personally am all over the Patriots in this game. I love them to cover that 3.5 point spread. I think they're going to come out and outright win. Their defense looked insane against Joe Burrow and particularly weak offensive line. The Seahawks offensive line isn't much better. We saw an injury to George Fant at halftime of that game, so they're a little thin in tackle. I think that pass rush and those linebackers are going to be causing havoc for Geno Smith in that offense, and I love the Patriots to come out on top.
I agree here. I think the players to watch in this game are obviously going to be the three Seahawks wide receivers, potentially some Kenneth Walker work, and the big man on the Patriots offensive side of the ball is going to be Ramondre Stevenson, whether we like it or not.
The Seahawks do have a great defense. We saw last week that Mike McDonald had these guys running all over the place. They were doing fantastic, bottling up that Broncos offense. I think the scenario is going to be the same this week, which leads to a low-scoring game. I think it's either Seahawks by 3 or the Patriots win outright with the under 37.5 hitting. Next game we have scheduled is the Commanders versus the Giants. The Commanders are 1.5 point favorites with the over-under set at 43.5. This line seems a little low for me. I don't know how the Commanders are only 2 point favorites. The Giants looked absolutely terrible last week. They could not get anything going on offense. And despite the fact that the Giants do own the Commanders for the previous few seasons, I do think it's a new regime. Jaden Daniels looked great. He's going to run all over this Giants defense, and I think they're going to win by way more than 2 points.
Yeah, I definitely agree here. I think 1.5 is going to be a smash hit for me. Probably my favorite spread of the week is going to be for this Commanders offense. They've shown that the ability to score points, whether it's running the ball, whether it's throwing the ball. Obviously, weren't able to get a ton through the air last week, but I think with this Giants secondary, even Deontay Banks being back there, I think they'll have that opportunity. Along with that, the Giants offense doesn't put points on the board, so as long as the Commanders put 3 points on the board, I'm sure they'll cover the spread.
That being said, the over-under of 43.5, I do think this game goes under. It's a division game with 2 weak teams and one team just being terrible. I think the Commanders win this game easily with this game score staying under 43 points. Moving on to the Chargers visiting the Panthers in Carolina. The Chargers are 6.5 point favorites with the over-under being set at 38.5. I mean, 6.5 points after a 37-point loss. There's no way the Chargers don't cover the spread. I think they're my favorite pick this week. I think the Chargers run all over that Panthers defense, especially with the loss of Derek Brown. There's no way that the Panthers come out and win this game, especially with how they performed last week. I love J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards in this game, and I do believe they'll put up enough points to take the over of 38.5.
Some players I like in this matchup are Deontay Johnson. I actually also like J.K. Dobbins in the Chargers offense, and potentially looking at Ladd McConkey if they look to get him involved a little bit more. I think I'm smashing the under in this as well. I think that the Chargers are all about that ground and pound offense, and I don't think the Panthers put up very many points on the board. Like you said, with one offense being very bad, the other one kind of being mediocre, you're likely looking at an under there.
The second and last game we have in the 1 o'clock slate is the Browns visiting the Jaguars. The Jags are 3 point favorites with the over-under set at 41.5. I honestly don't know what to think about this game. I don't think both teams played really well last week. I think the Browns definitely have the advantage on defense, and the Jags definitely have the advantage on offense. I could see this being a very close game. I personally am going to be taking the Browns at +3. I think their defense steps up and holds the Jaguars in check. I also do think Deshaun Watson might see a little bit more improvement this week since he's not playing a stellar defense like the Cowboys. With that being said, too, I would also take the over 41.5. I think this is going to be a 24-20, 27-20 type game with the Browns coming out on top.
I agree. I think the Browns will cover the spread on their end. I think some players to watch out for here are Jerome Ford, obviously Travis Etienne on the Jaguars side, and I have Evan Ingram leading the Jaguars in receiving this week.
The last game we have on the 1 o'clock slate is the Raiders visiting the Ravens in Baltimore. This is the Ravens' home opener, and they open at 9.5-point favorites with the over-under set at 41.5 points.
I'm comfortable taking the Ravens to cover this. I think the Ravens will blow them out considering how well Lamar played, considering the way that their offense moves. And I think the Raiders are not going to put a lot of points on the board. So I think the Ravens are my candidate to cover this spread and end this game in a blowout.
I also think the Ravens will cover that 9.5-point spread. I absolutely love Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry this week. We saw what the Chargers were able to do to them on the ground, and I don't think anything's going to change this week. Definitely taking Derrick Henry's over on rushing yards, definitely taking Lamar Jackson's over on rushing yards. I think this is going to be a boat race. With that being said, I'm going to be taking the over of 41.5. I do think the Raiders will have some improvement on offense. Nate Wiggins is starting at corner, and I think Devontae Adams will be able to exploit that rookie corner and get some yards, maybe get into the end zone. But the Ravens are still going to be winning this game outright and by more than 10 points. Moving on to our first 4 o'clock game, we got the Rams traveling to Arizona. The Arizona Cardinals are 1.5-point favorites with the line set at 49.5. I love the Rams in this game. I did love how the Cardinals looked last week. I think they showed great flashes. I think they showed great signs of being a great offense this year. But the Rams are just too explosive on offense. Their defense looked very good for a good portion of that Lions game, and I think they're going to keep it up against this Arizona offense. I do not see this being a high-scoring game. I do see the Rams coming out on top with the over-under staying under 49.5 points.
Yeah, I'd definitely take the Rams side of the spread on this one. I think they come out and dominate. Cooper Kupp shows what he's able to do. And the Cardinals are still young. I think Marvin Harrison has a little bit of a tough time adjusting once again against this good Rams secondary. And I have the Rams taking this one outright.
Moving on to Steelers versus Broncos. This game is going to be in Denver. Pittsburgh are 3-point favorites with the over-under set at 36.5.
I think I'd be comfortable taking the Steelers here to cover the spread. I think that they win outright. And I think Bo Nix is definitely having a tough time in terms of passing the ball, in terms of getting the ball out to his receivers. And I definitely think that the Steelers come out on top of this one.
I also love the Steelers to cover that 3-point spread this week. We saw how they bottled up Kirk Cousins in that Falcons offense. I think they're going to do even worse things to Denver. I think they win by more than 3, and I'm definitely taking the under of 36.5. I don't think that either team is going to be putting up more than 20 points, with the Broncos definitely struggling to get the ball moving. Moving on to the last 4 o'clock game between the Bengals and the Chiefs. The Chiefs are 6-point favorites in this game, and the over-under is set at 47.5 points.
I like the Chiefs to cover their side of the spread. I know it's a lot of favorites, but the Bengals offense looked atrocious the other day, and I don't see them making any immediate improvements to the point where the Chiefs will have a struggle. I think the Chiefs will cover their 6-point spread, and I think they'll win by even more. I'd be comfortable taking them at that line.
I think the Chiefs' defense looked stellar last week against the Ravens, despite allowing a lot of yards to Lamar Jackson. That defensive line is just going to eat up the Bengals' O-line. I do not see the Bengals staying in this game. I think the Chiefs win by 10. I also will be taking the over in this game. I think it's going to be a little bit of a shootout, maybe a 34-24, with the Bengals getting some offense going, but I just don't think they're going to be able to keep up. Moving on to our Sunday night game, we have the Chicago Bears traveling to Houston to take on the Texans. The Texans open as 6.5-point favorites, and the over-under is set at 45.5.
I like the Bears to actually cover their side of the spread on this one. I think that this is going to be a surprising game of the week where we have a bit of a close game, but I do think the Texans come out on top just by 3. I think the Bears didn't really show us much of their offense last week, but this Texans defense will allow Caleb Williams to kind of open up a little bit, not put as much pressure on him. He was playing a tough defense last week, and I think the Bears will take care of business.
I'm actually taking the Texans to cover the 6.5-point spread this week. I think the Bears didn't show me enough last week, especially with that weak offensive line and poor offensive showing. think the Texans looked like one of the best teams last week, and I think they're going to take full advantage of that Bears defense. The Bears defense will hold them in check, but I just don't think that the Bears offense will be able to keep them in this game, so that's why I'm taking them to cover. In terms of the over-under, I think this game stays under 45.5. I think this will be about a 24-14, 24-17 game in favor of the Texans. There won't be a lot of offense going on the Bears side. The Texans might even score on defense, but I do think this will be a low-scoring matchup. Moving on to our last game of Week 2, we have the Falcons going into Lincoln Financial Field to take on the Eagles. The Eagles are 6.5-point favorites, and the line is set at 47.5 points.
I wouldn't even take two thoughts about this one. I think I'm taking the Eagles clearly to cover their side of the spread. It's pretty clear who's going to be the better team here, especially with the Eagles' pressure on the defensive side of the ball. Kirk Cousins still has some things to work out on as far as his movement, as far as getting the ball to his receivers and scoring the ball in general. So I have the Eagles covering their side.
I completely agree. I'm taking the Eagles at 6.5 points. I think Saquon Barkley is going to destroy this Falcons defense. I think Jalen Hurts is going to eat. Both Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown are going to get their fair share of targets. I don't think there's a scenario where Atlanta wins this game. I do like the over of 47.5 in this game. I do think both teams are going to put up some points, but I think the Eagles will eventually run away with this one. So that's it for our Week 2 review. Every week at the end of this video, we're going to be giving you our 4 favorite lines of the week. We've actually taken this from the PMT podcast. We're going to give you 1 underdog, 1 favorite, 1 over, and 1 under that we absolutely love. We're going to put into a parlay, and then you're going to see it right above our heads right here. So my favorite lines for Week 2 will be up here. So my picks for Week 2, I got the Buccaneers covering that 7-point spread. I got the Washington Commanders to cover that minus 1.5-point spread. I have the Niners and Vikings to go over 45.5 points. And finally, I got the Bills and the Dolphins to go under 49 points. I'll be right up here.
My underdog for this week is going to be the LA Rams against the Arizona Cardinals. My favorite for this week is going to be Baltimore Ravens against the Raiders. My over for this week is going to be, in that same game, is going to be the LA Rams and the Cardinals once again. And my under for this week is an absolute lock. I've got the Panthers and the Chargers game.
Thank you guys for tuning in. This was our Week 2 preview. Catch us next week for our Week 2 review and Week 3 preview. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe below. Thank you guys.
Thank you.